So thank you so much once again for having me over here. And the topic given to me is cataract surgery in corneal disease. And since almost everyone in the audience is either a speaker or a moderator, and all of you are experienced surgeons, I think I'll just share a few points, few views which I have on different types of corneal disease and how we manage cataract surgery in concomitant corneal disease, and look forward to hearing from all your inputs. So essentially, I'll take you all through a few of the most common conditions. First and foremost is the challenge with dry eye and dry eye associated disease, irregular astigmatism, Fuchs dystrophy, and hazy and compromised corneas. So with the dry eye, the main problem, apart from treating the dry eye, is also that we are unable to sometimes determine what portion of the dry eye disease is, or the visual loss is caused by the cataract surgery, and what is due to the dry eye disease. And what would be the IOL power calculation challenges when we have a patient with a poor ocular surface. Take a look at this patient. Showed a significant astigmatism, but on a closer examination had a lot of punctate erosions in the cornea, started on lubricants and ointments, and then when he came back with a better ocular surface, you could see that there was almost no astigmatism at all. So from a 3.5 diopter to no astigmatism, these can be significant changes in the corneal keratometry readings when a patient has any surface breakdown or punctate erosions. So it's important that we take care of these issues, treat any blepharitis, meibomian gland disease, give them lubricants. If necessary, a short period of soft steroids or cyclosporin would also be helpful, in especially steroids, in restoring the ocular health. And subsequently, even in the post-operative period, it's important that we don't bombard them with too many medications, use a short course of steroids, maybe even withhold NSA drops and give them lubricants. This will ensure that you have a less than stormy perioperative course. In a patient with a more severe disease, sorry, I'm not sure why the video is not running, with a OCP or SGS, you would want to treat the ocular surface first, ensure that you have a very stable ocular surface before you go ahead with any cataract surgery procedure. So this is a patient who presented, actually was referred for cataract surgery with corneal scarring, but actually had a history of SGS and had significant lid margin keratinization. Although it was a total cataract, it was always better to wait to do the lid margin MMG first and then subsequently stabilize the surface and go ahead and do it. In these cases, you may not be able to get away with a routine cataract surgery. Even a speculum insertion might be difficult. You have to use corneal staining techniques. One tip is, wherever there is corneal scarring, try to initiate and complete your exit away from the region of the scar. As a result, you may have some difficulties in visualizing underneath the scar itself. Apart from that, the cataract surgery is pretty routine. All you have to do is probably tilt the globe a little away from the direction of the scar and ensure that you have good chopping techniques, ensure they are all completely separated, the pieces are separated before you go ahead with the phacoemulsification itself. And you can implant an IOL of your choice, definitely no premium IOLs in such situations, and always suture the ports, as the integrity and the tensile strength of the cornea can be compromised in some of these conditions. Moving on quickly to keratoconus, challenge is whether you have centered or decentered cones, whether the patient was a previous RGP user. Again, repeatability of K readings becomes a challenge. So one of the main challenges is, we assume there is a fixed ratio between the anterior and posterior cornea in all our calculations, and this can also be altered in keratoconus. And this is another facet which makes biometric calculation for cataract surgery difficult. If you have a little decentered cone, the K readings are not repeatable. You could either do a topo-guided PRK and regularize the cornea, or even do an intracorneal ring segment, as in this particular case, and then improve the cornea. So you need to remember that the keratometry readings have to be stable, not just in terms of magnitude, but also in terms of direction, if you have to choose a toric IOL. In case the direction of the K readings is not repeatable, for some reason the video is not running, I'm sorry, but it's not repeatable, you would do well to just go ahead and put in a spherical IOL implant and then continue the patient on a contact lens, either a RGP or a Rose-K. If you put in a toric IOL and the patient requires a contact lens later, it will actually end up uncovering the astigmatism corrected by the toric IOL, and the patient would require a significant power on the glasses as well. Again, aim for a slightly myopic outcome, and in some of these extreme cases, you may even have to resort to using a piggyback IOL if the residual power is significant. PMD, again, less of a concern. You can use customized toric lenses, which are quite useful. Post PK and DALK, yes, to the extent possible, we can ensure complete suture removal, but more than that, it's repeatable topography and K readings, which are very important. Again, in this video, as you would notice, there are some sutures left in, and they have been left inside for almost a year now, and the K readings and topography have been stable. The astigmatism is less than 3 diopters. So it's not a mandatory requirement that all sutures have to be removed and the patient has a significant posterior subcapsular cataract. Also, the astigmatism can be quite high in some of these patients, and you can use even customized toric lenses. There are these Ultima Smart toric lenses available from Care Group, which are quite good, and you can correct very high degrees of astigmatism and odd powers even with these IOLs. With Fuchs dystrophy, again, you may have to combine with a DSEC or a DMEC. With DSEC, it alters the posterior curvature, so you would have to add a 1.25, 1.5 diopter to the power. With DMEC, of course, the impact is quite minimal, and you can go ahead with the same surgery. Again, early Fuchs dystrophy, you may have slight epithelial widowing, which may alter the K readings and make the repeatability of the K readings quite poor. I think because of paucity of time, I will not go through the details, but with other end of the spectrum where you have grafts which are failed grafts with poor quality of vision, you can use alternate illumination, either retroillumination techniques. You can use chandelier illumination as used in this case. These are just visualization techniques with hazy corneas to improve outcomes. It's just important because you can do a safe in the bag phacoemulsification in these cases, and when you combine it with an endothelial keratoplasty, you would want to have a stable IOL in the bag so that during all your air bubble maneuvers, the IOL does not get displaced and you can go ahead with a safe surgery. Again, it's also important to realize when not to do a combined surgery. Now, this is a one-eyed patient with a neurotrophic cornea who had a secondary bacterial infection and had healed. So in these cases, even though the corneal scarring is quite significant, the patient also has a dense brown cataract. It's just important that we ensure that we can give the patient sufficient quality of vision for a long period of time and not combine a corneal graft in these procedures. It's just one point with regard to cataract surgery to emphasize is that ensure that the pieces are completely separated and chopped right up to the posterior plate before removing these pieces. Because if we try to maneuver and remove them with poor visibility, if there is inadvertent zonular dialysis, then the whole situation becomes a lot more difficult and tricky to manage. So ensure that chops are complete and multiple chops are being done, and then subsequent removal and surgery is quite easy. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shreyas, for sharing your cases, all challenging ones. I would also like you to answer this question. In which cases would you like to do an SICS? Would that be a choice?
Yeah, even in the last video which I was showing, an SICS would have been a perfectly acceptable option. It's just any surgical technique that we are comfortable with for that particular case. The only places where I would possibly avoid an SICS is where I don't want conjunctival handling or scleral handling, like in OCP and other conditions.
Thank you so much.
Can I ask a question? Dr. Shreyas, I just wanted to know your preferred IOL power calculation formula in KC as well as in Fuchs dystrophy. What would you recommend?
In KC and Fuchs dystrophy? Fuchs dystrophy, as such, I don't think there's any specific go-to IOL formula that we have, madam. I mean, it's just the challenge in recording rather than the biometry challenge itself. With keratoconus, of course, Barrett formula has KC specific formula now, which can also be utilized. But apart from that, I think it's you can also use, even with the regular calculator, the integrated K values, where you can get K readings from 3 different devices, which helps in bringing down the variability and the errors. If it is a single device, if there is an error, we don't know which one to go to. So you can use the integrated K as an additional vision as well.
Thank you so much.